Hello my dear students, once again welcome to your online class. Today we will be dealing with the 7th chapter of your chemistry textbook, which is the metals and the non-metals. So first, talking about the occurrence of the metals. So today around 118 elements known to us, most of them they are metal, only 22 being the non-metals. But in spite of non-metals being in a very small number, they are of greater importance. So talking about the occurrence of the metal, most of the metal they are very reactive. So that's why they do not occur in a free state. So that's why they are found in a combined state in the form of ores. And the process by which we obtain the metal from the ores, it's known as metallurgy, which we will be learning in class 10 in details. There are only few metals which occurs in a native state like silver, gold and platinum. But rest of them they always occurs in the form of oxide or in the forms of carbonates or in the form of sulfide. So that's not in the topic. Okay. So now coming to the differentiation, to differentiate between the metals and the non-metals. So we can differentiate the metals and non-metals in terms of its physical property and also in terms of its chemical property. Now what is a physical property? The physical properties are the one which we can see it, we can feel it. Just like the basic difference between the metal and the non-metals are, the metals they are usually hard and they are solid, but the non-metals they are usually soft and they are usually liquid and gases. But there are some exceptional cases. Just like I said that most of the metals they are solid, but there is an exceptional case which is a mercury. A mercury is only the metal that is liquid at a room temperature, and there is another there is another metal which is solid when stationary, but when handled it changes into liquid, that is a gallium. Now coming to the second differentiation between a metals and a non-metals, the metals they are usually lustrous, they shine, but the non-metals they are dull. The non-metals they are also usually non-sonorous, and the metals they are sonorous. Sonorous means when you strike a metal with some object, it produces a prolonged sound, just like the bell in your schools. So these are the few of the differentiation between the metals and the non-metals in terms of a physical property, which you can learn in details from your book. Now coming to the second topic, the difference between a metal and non-metal in terms of the chemical property, we can easily define that the metals are those substances which can donate an electron, and the non-metals are the one which can easily accept an electron. For example, the sodium atom Na. Okay, so what does the sodium? The sodium, it has one electron in its valence shell. So therefore the sodium, it can easily lose one electron and form the positive ion, okay, which is a cation. And the non-metals like a chlorine, the chlorine can gain one electron and form Cl minus, which is known as a anion. Okay, so this is the basic difference in terms of its chemical property between a metal and a non-metal. So the metals they have a capability to donate an electron, but whereas the non-metals they have a capability to accept an electron. And you can write that the metals after donating electron they form a negatively charged ion, the positively charged ion, which are known as cations, and the non-metals after gaining an electron it becomes a negatively charged particle, which are known as anions. There are also other many chemical properties of metals and non-metals, that too you can go in details from your book. Now the third topic in this chapter is uses of metals and non-metals. So there are many metals known to us, but of which very few are well known to us, and they are of very great importance. So here I have taken some of the common metals that we see in our day-to-day life. They are the iron, aluminium and copper. Okay, so iron, it's very important for the construction of bridges and for the construction of houses, for the buildings, for the construction of ships. Everywhere we see around, we see something or the other which is made out of iron. So iron plays a very important role in our day-to-day life. Apart from those uses, the iron is also very essential for human beings, because we need iron, because iron helps in the formation of hemoglobin, okay, which is the most important part of our blood. Now coming to the second metal, the aluminium. Aluminium is the most commonly used metal. Starting from the chocolate wrappers to making of an aeroplane, we use aluminium, because aluminium has such a property that it's very light, but it is more stronger than the iron. So the aluminium is used for making ships, for making cars, for making utensils, for making wires, and for so many other tasks the aluminium is used. Now coming to the third metal, that is the copper. Okay, so copper, actually we use copper because the copper has a very high conductivity. So this copper is usually used for making the electrical gadgets, that means especially for making wires, because the wires should be made out of the good conductor of electricity, and the copper, its conductivity is very high. So therefore using a copper to make a household wire which is used for the wiring system would be very efficient. So these three metals that is mentioned in your book, okay, once again you go through the book, read its property and also its uses. Now coming to the non-metal. So the non-metal, as I already mentioned, there are only about 21 or 22 non-metal known to us, but they are of great importance. Just like here we have hydrogen. Okay, so without hydrogen the formation of water would not have been possible, and without water the life on earth would not have been possible. So therefore the hydrogen is a very important non-metal. Apart from that, the hydrogen is also used for making vanaspati ghee, which is known as the process of making the ghee using hydrogen is known as hydrogenation. Now coming to the second non-metal, oxygen. We all are very much familiar with the oxygen. The oxygen is the life-supporting gas in the earth crust. Without oxygen, the life on earth would not have been possible, because all the living beings, okay, including plants, they need oxygen for survival. And apart from that, oxygen is also very necessary for the process of burning. Okay, without oxygen, the burning would not have been possible. So it would have not been possible for us to cook food. And finally, the third non-metal is a nitrogen. And nitrogen is very important for plants, because just like for human beings the proteins are important, similarly for plants the nitrogen is important. Apart from that, the nitrogen is also used for the manufacture of ammonia, okay, along with the hydrogen. Like the nitrogen, when combines with the hydrogen, we get ammonia, NH3, and this ammonia is very essential part of fertilizer. So it's used for making fertilizer. Okay, and in absence of fertilizer, the farmers would not have grown the crops properly, and it would have been very difficult for us to survive. Okay, so these are the few of the metals and the non-metals that are mentioned in your book, and in your book it's given in details. Okay, so please go through your book once again. Now coming to the fifth topic, the noble metals and its uses. So what are the noble metals? The noble metals are the one that do not react with any other element. That means where no corrosion takes place. So there are three well-known noble metals. They are the silver, gold and the platinum. Okay, so the silver, you must have seen, the silver is usually used for making coins, and it's also used for making jewelries, and in some of the cases they are also used for making the parts of the electrical gadgets, because it also has a good conductivity. Now coming to the second one, the gold. We all are very much familiar with the gold. Gold, they are usually used for making precious jewelries. And then finally the platinum. Okay, so the platinum is the most noble metal known to the human beings, and because it's so unreactive, so that's why this platinum, they are usually used for making the surgical instruments, and apart from the surgical instrument, they are also used for making jewelries as well. And finally the platinum also acts as a catalyst in many of the reactions. Now coming to the another topic, that is the sixth topic. Here we have metalloids. Now what are metalloids? The metalloids are those substances whose property lies between that of a metal and a non-metal. In some of the cases, it behaves like a metal, but whereas in the other, it behaves like a non-metal. This metalloid can also be called as a semi-metal. Why semi-metal? Because it's a half a metal. Okay, and these are used for making various electrical components, like we have a chips nowadays, CPU, microchips. Okay, the memory card that you use, in all of them, the semiconductors or the semi-metals are used. Some of the well-known semiconductors are the silicon, germanium, and etc. Okay, so the metalloids also plays a very important role in our day-to-day life. Now coming to the seventh topic, that is the corrosion of iron, which is also known as rusting. Now you must have seen, whenever the iron is left exposed for a longer period of time, a brown color dust like thing is formed on the outer coating. So that is known as a rusting. So the rusting is a process in which the iron, it reacts with the water present in the atmosphere, and also in the presence of oxygen, it gets corroded, and the corrosion occurring in case of iron is known as a rusting. So how does the rusting occur? So if you have to write the chemical equation for the rusting, it's like the iron when treated with the oxygen, okay, and in the presence of water, X H2O. Here I have written X because the amount of water may vary. Okay, so if it is in the water molecule may be more. If the climate is quite dry, the amount of water may be less. On reacting, we get a compound known as Fe2O3.XH2O, which is known as a hydrated ferric oxide. So the chemical name of rust is hydrated ferric oxide. Okay, so this hydrated ferric oxide is known as rust. Now coming to the eighth topic, that is the condition necessary for rusting. Now it's very important for us to remember that the rusting does not occur everywhere. The rusting occurs only in the presence of two important things. So the first one being the water. So water is very necessary for rusting. So if there is no water, there will be no rusting. And the second one is the oxygen. Okay, so if both of them they are essential. If one is present, the other is absent, then also the rusting is not possible. For example, if you take an iron rod and keep it in a moon for thousands of years, still it won't rust because there is no oxygen at all. So the two necessary conditions required for an iron to get rusted or corrosion of iron is the presence of water and as well as the presence of oxygen. Now this rusting has a lot of disadvantages. What happens? It makes the buildings weaker and the bridges may collapse because of rusting. So this rusting can be prevented in various ways. The first way to prevent rusting is by painting. You must have usually seen the windows, the grills in the windows, or whichever substances that are made out of iron, they are usually painted. Because by painting, what we do, we prevent the iron from getting exposed to the atmospheric water and oxygen. So in that way we can prevent rusting. So the first one is by painting. The second process by which you can prevent rusting is greasing. Okay, so you must have usually seen, okay, we grease, we put certain kinds of oil or grease in the metallic industrial machineries. Okay, the first one, of course, yes, it reduces the friction as well, but it also, what does it do? The same what the painting does. When we put a grease on the surface of the metal or the iron, what happens? The surface of the iron is not exposed to the atmospheric oxygen and water. Thus, the rusting can be prevented by greasing. Another one is, we can also prevent it by galvanization. So the galvanization is a process in which a zinc is coated on top of a iron. So there are another method which is an electrolytical method of prevention of rusting. Okay, so these also you may learn in detail from your book. Okay, so whatever I said, you must learn it from your book. So these are the 9 important topics that is included in the chapter of metals and non-metals. It's a very easy chapter and as well as very interesting also. So please, dear students, watch this video once or twice and then revise each and every topic from your book and try to solve all the question answers of this chapter. And if you have any problem, you are always free to ask me in my WhatsApp number. Thank you.